Hey, fellow tennis nerds. Today I'm here with Alex Chan. You might have seen him, probably you have on Instagram. He creates some excellent, engaging, informational content about tennis. He's been in the tennis game for a long time, 13 years working for the USTA. He's been working as a coach. He's been stringing for a long time, so that's also interesting. He has loads of rackets on his walls. He works with lots of different brands. So I'm very excited to talk to him today about tennis, all things tennis. So how are you today, Alex?
Hey, I'm doing great after coming back from a Thanksgiving break on my end, so I feel very refreshed for this week.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can imagine.
yeah.
Uh, what did you eat?
What did I eat? You said?
Yeah,
Yeah, we had turkey, the classic, and then we
yeah.
had a mixture of Chinese food as well, just a mixture of culture. But no, we ate a lot. We ate turkey for like I think 3 or 4 days in a row. So,
Yeah, that's the spirit of Thanksgiving. I know it well. Pretty. I lived in the States a few
oh,
kind
okay.
of 20 years back. So you're going to go on the tennis court today, or what's the plan?
Yeah, I'll be out there in the afternoon. I do some lessons with some local kids in this area, so I'll do that. I know it's a little bit chilly this week. It's like 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I guess here. I'm
Yeah,
not sure what's that in Celsius, but yeah, it's getting
it's
chilly.
pretty chilly, pretty cold actually. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, but it is how it is. As long as it's sunny, it's fine. Make it work.
yeah, exactly. The sun makes a big difference, right? So you coach all year round, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just happened this past. I moved to a relatively new area a year and a half ago, and then I guess there was some word of mouth that I was around, and people were like, "Okay, we're looking for coaches." So I was like, "Okay, I am certified. I guess I can do some of this during my free time," and then it kind of built from there. So now I I do lessons like essentially every day of the week at this point. I probably should actually slow down because I do have a full-time job as well, but I just like doing it because I'm helping out the kids out here. I mostly work with like beginner to intermediate players that are trying to get into a high school team, and in my area in particular, it's actually very competitive to get on a high school team. So yeah, I'm just trying to help them out the best I can.
That's fun if you have a competitive area because like you're I'm always wondering about tennis how it's doing. I mean in the US you always hear about like the pickleball wars and stuff like that, and
Sure.
so how is it in your region? Is tennis still thriving? Is it doing well?
Yeah. So for those that are not familiar, I'm based out of the DC metro area. So I'm in Maryland, Montgomery County in particular. So I would say over here it's pretty healthy as far as like tennis and pickleball. I would say there's very popular recently pickleball, but we still have a big population of tennis players as well. So I would say I mean I do sometimes have a hard time getting courts. Out here, I just mostly use like some public courts here and there, but it's still pretty busy over here. We have a lot of great tennis groups in this area. There's a lot of tennis history in this area as well. So I'd say it's pretty healthy in this particular area.
That's great. Yeah, it's how it should be. It's sports, right? So we're
Mhm.
all happy if people are moving and enjoying themselves on any kind of court. Really, that's my perspective about it. Yeah, so kind of DC area. I lived in DC 20 years ago. I lived
Oh,
in
okay.
Arlington though, so in the Virginia side of it. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, tennis is pretty popular over there for sure, and also pickleball. I've heard some things, but yeah, definitely both sports are very popular over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, exactly. So it's no, that's a pretty good tennis area. I wasn't playing much tennis. I was working as a journalist and studying,
Oh,
so was more my gig then. But got back into tennis as well. For your own playing, that do you play any tournaments or anything, or is it more like you get into coaching?
yeah, so I would describe myself as a an out of shape 4.0 NTRP player. I mean I play for fun nowadays recreationally. In the past, I used to do some leagues. I did some like just some local tournaments, but it was never really a main part of my tennis life. I would say, like in college, I started a club tennis program at my school, and although I did play, I mostly got a lot of enjoyment from being able to organize like my team and the players, get them involved and have them play it out the matches while I support on the sidelines and all that. So I've always been kind of more like an organizer in the community space in tennis, and that kind of how it ended up evolving into my career later on. I worked at, as you mentioned, I worked at USTA for 13 years. I just left recently in January, but during those 13 years, I was primarily working with grassroots and community tennis. So helping out with, for example, like parks and recs or schools tennis. A lot of them are very much more the beginner stages, but that's how I built a base of tennis players in our area. So I always got a lot of enjoyment of just introducing the sport to new people that are getting to the game.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things, because I think like the way you see tennis compared to newer sports, at least newer growing sports like pickleball, and in Europe we have a lot of paddle. You're getting it, like, or whatever you pronounce it, padel, but you have it in the US now, and it's growing a little bit, picking up speed. Is that those sports are a little bit easier to get into? So like that first, period when you're picking up the racket, that's the most challenging one, right?
You make a good point there. So that's for past 13 years, a lot of it was me kind of explaining to or not necessarily explain, but showing people that tennis is more accessible than they think it is. I know that there's sometimes we say that tennis is, I guess two sides. Some people like they're just have no knowledge. They say, oh, tennis is easy, and then some people say, oh, tennis is too hard. But I think there's a, obviously there's a middle spot that we can kind of agree on there. So oftentimes when I teach tennis to new people, oftentimes I use like the youth equipment that we have, like the red felt balls and stuff, and then they realize, oh, it's actually not that bad. They kind of have them learn the fundamentals. I would say that one thing I wish that we could have done better in tennis was we should have been able to take that concept and really kind of show like, okay, adults can use the same like these balls to play on like the shorter courts, and they can be having fun and like immediately start playing, sort of like what pickleball is doing right now, where they can show like other people can just jump on a court and immediately play. We probably could have done a better job at doing that on our end as well. But there's definitely a lot of options out there. I'm just happy that people are playing like racket sports in general, and hopefully something that just kind of support one another in the long run. So, but yeah, I do wish we could have done a better job at getting tennis more available to the community as a whole in the States.
Yeah, I agree. I think that green ball thing, where you actually like you either shrink the court or both, use a lighter, ball that doesn't require as much force.
Sure.
And make sure that they get rackets that are not going to hurt their arm. Lighter, easier rackets to play with. You're gonna, put the bar down quite a lot. And they're gonna engage more with it. This is how pickleball is. We just get you put a bat in someone's hand and they can actually play straight away. While tennis needs a lot of mechanics, which is also nice in the long run, because it's like you have a whole lifetime of improving or growing with the game. But that first, now that everybody has the attention span of goldfish, like you need to catch them earlier, right? So I think that makes sense.
Exactly. That was probably my role in the USA, just kind of making sure we get that out there and hopefully get them to continue playing and make them not scared off from the sport. So I thought we did a pretty good job in our region, in our area, but obviously it's always there's always more to it that can be done for sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but I'm sure you did a great job. So how was working with the USTA for so long, and now now you're not in tennis anymore, or you were still working in the tennis industry?
So I mean, I got into specifically I worked at the USTA Mid-Atlantic section. So I was at the section level, not the national level. So yeah, it was. It was just a great experience. But I was there for 13 years, and I was just thinking, maybe I want to try something different, but I still want to be involved in tennis in some way. So I did change careers, but I'm very much involved in tennis currently, even in some ways even more so. So ever since I left, I did more coaching. I did. I've done more streaming coaching, but also more on the social media side. I've done a much more. So I started an LLC recently for essentially for my social media business. Where, we talk more about it later on. But essentially, I've been doing a lot more brand partnerships this past year in the tennis space. So I've been doing that, and then I've been also helping out with like different tennis creators and like smaller tennis brands, help them build a better, stronger like social media presence and how to navigate those conversations that people have between like brands and the creators and vice versa. So I've been doing a lot of that as part of my tennis side gig nowadays. So I'm still very much involved in tennis. Long story short, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I feel that sometimes when you work with something you're very passionate about, and I mean like a full-time thing with it's your USTA thing, you kind of diminish sometimes the hobby aspect or the passion aspect, because you feel like what's your hobby becomes your work, and then it's not as much your passion anymore, right? Like it changes a bit. Now maybe you can be more passionate about the social media side because you have a normal day job that is not involved in tennis. So you can actually be more involved in tennis
Yeah.
from your passion point of view, right?
Yep, that's exactly how I feel. And with that all said, I still support USTA. I mean, I've done some brand partnerships with my local section recently, and I'm sure that down the road, I'll probably would want to go on like join like a committee or like a volunteer committee for USTA and just continue to help out in whatever way I can in this different role of mine. So yeah, so they're very much involved still.
And it's good. Like, I mean, it's tough. I think these days people are not. I mean, I grew up when everybody was kind of involved in some sport or in some kind of grassroots organization, but it feels like it diminished a bit over the years. That people like it's too busy, life's too hectic, kids, whatever, and people are not like so much in grassroots involvement. They just like, hey, I need to chase money, right? So it's like that's changed a bit. So it's always nice when you hear people who are want to help out in the activity they like, whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah, grassroots programs like they're, I mean, the people that are involved, they are very, like, they're amazing. I mean, I want to support them. I mean, when I work at USTA, we provided like grant support, but also some like educational support and whatever way we can. But these people are the best. That without them, like it's like our sports wouldn't be growing as much as it could be. So yeah, I feel like they are underrated. Yeah, but I'm not biased because I was working in the community space the whole time, but I feel like there's not enough attention drawn to the people that are out there every day that are really providing like tennis to the community. It's just it's an important thing that people just sometimes forget that it's there. It's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
So,
For sure. So how is it working in your new kind of experience with brands? Like you're working with different brands.
sure.
They have different creative requirements or different tasks. Like, do you find it just fun, or do you find some challenging aspects of it? Like, what is your feeling around that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of direction I can kind of go on this. I guess I can start at the beginning when I first started making content on Instagram in the tennis world. I was doing it for fun, and then I started getting in contact with different. Like, mostly it was at times smaller brands that we kind of work out a deal where it was mostly like a gifted collaboration where they might send me something and I'll make some posts either like that's either dedicated to that product or just like more like integrated where it's like more like product placement. So I was doing that for a little bit, and then in 2020, had a little more time, and I got more into content creation. I started building more relationship with different brands. I got very lucky with forming a relationship with Wilson Tennis for a while. So for a couple of years, I was a social media ambassador with them. So we did a lot of campaigns. Hence why I have all these rackets on my back. Like they send over a lot of great stuff. So I was doing that for a while, and then this past year, I started doing. I started, widening my pool of brands. I started reaching out to different ones, and created a mutually beneficiary relationship with them. Where, for example, one is Oliver Sports. I'm not sure you're familiar with them, but they are I would say they're more like popular in the United States because that's where they're based out of. I helped them with some campaigns throughout the year. They're like my long-term partnership for this year. So I helped create some organic content for them, but I also create like whitelist ads for them where they could. Are you familiar with whitelist ads?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For people that listen, I mean, I ask that question because a lot of people don't know what that means. So I ask like other creators, like, "What's a whitelist ad?" But yeah, like basically, essentially, they would put out ad where it looks like it's coming from me, but they're actually the one that putting it out there, and it seems like it's been pretty effective for them. It has generated a lot more click throughs and just return investment on those type of ads that made more relatable to the people that are watching it. So I started doing that, and then I continue to work with different brands as they come up. Of course, like I ideally want long-term relationship with brands because it kind of shows more that it's more authentic if I truly using them their products regularly, and that's how I am all the time anyway with any brand. Like if I'm not gonna work for a brand if I don't believe in them or I don't think that they can benefit my audience in some way. So I definitely have turned down a lot of like collaborations where even they were willing to pay me. I was like, I don't think this will fit my particular audience, or I don't think I'm the best person to do this, but maybe this other creator might be a good one. So I've done a lot of that this past year. It's like kind of connecting other creators to brands that might be a good fit I think some people think it's like like they see other creators in their space like, as competitors, but I don't necessarily see that. I see it as we're lifting the tide for all, all boats will rise. That phrase, so that we help everyone else out. It just grows everyone. So yeah, that's how I kind of see things.
Yeah, it's same. I mean, like, so part of a lot of things is like your philosophy in life in general. So if you're like, I mean, if you're spreading good karma, whatever you want to call it, like by doing good deeds or by like, you do your thing, doesn't mean you're detracting from someone else. It just
Yep.
means like that you're showing that this is a way. And for example, working with brands, if they see that brand collaborations work or other people do it, they are more open to maybe working with other collaborators as well. So it's like it's a good thing, right? That's how you have to see it.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of it is just like go back to educating. There's a lot of brands that, from like smaller brands to big brands, they don't fully like understand the landscape of social media. Which, in all fairness, it is very confusing because it's constantly changing every year, and each what's called platform is also has its own like differences. So like something that can work on TikTok obviously may not work on Instagram and vice versa. So it constantly evolves. So I would say that's probably one of my bigger, I guess, hobbies too. Is I like to stay on top of those latest trends in the social media world, and then share that with like my other tennis creators and so forth. So like, hey, here's something that you should try, or here's something to consider. Or here's something like, if a brand asks you to do this, like you should probably ask for more in return. Because I think a lot of times, unintentionally or not, like a lot of creators get taken advantage of for the amount of work that they actually do. So, yeah, right. Like it's all that work. So it's like you should be paid or compensated well for the work that you put in, because the brand's getting a lot from it too. So you all should get something from it too. So yeah, just
Yeah,
change
I think it's sorry to interrupt, but I think it's a funny thing with I mean, brands obviously they're corporations, so they know what they're doing. They're like, okay, we have this kind of budget, we're gonna ask creators. Obviously, they want to lowball the people they can. Like, I mean, no brand wants to be a donation service of any kind, right?
sure.
But I think people who work with their passion sometimes can be more, they just like allow a little bit of a lower price, or just like
Right.
they're easy to work with because they love their tennis in this case, right? But could
Right.
be anything else. So it's easier for the brands then to go and be like, hey, we can offer this, and they will be happy to accept because it's their passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that you're spreading that, because I think also what I noticed, like I worked in marketing for 20 years, so what I've seen it from the other side and from this side as well as a creator, and it's like the brands in tennis, I feel, are more cheapskates than in other industries.
You said that. Yeah. I've noticed that trend as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of different brands in different aspects. Like, I mean, for reviewing gear, it's a lot like I'm objective in my best way of doing so, but it's still like I noticed that they like, oh, we send you a free racket or this. Now you should be happy forever. I'm like, well, the racket is like 50 euros. What the fuck are you talking about?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, like that. While I know some people are very like more business savvy in terms of social media, like Felix from Tennis
Yeah.
Brothers, for example, we had a long conversation about that, because he's very much, his father is like a CMO as well, so it's like he knows his value, which I think is refreshing in a sense, because it's tough. These brands, you're happy to work with someone, but the brands like to take advantage, of course, that people are happy.
Right. And it is difficult to navigate that, because not all creators are business minded. And even then, like it is, there's a lot to kind of keep track of. There's a lot of it's not an exact science. In many ways, like maybe like every brand creative relationship is a little bit different depending on the deliverables that they have. And then like people always ask like, what's your rates, what's your this, but it really depends on so many factors, and it can change by brand to brand. So I can see why it would confuse people, and I try to give some brands like a benefit of the doubt that they're also are not as familiar with that as well. They kind of say, oh yeah, it goes back to what you said earlier. Like if they maybe for a while it worked out where like, okay, they gift to people stuff in return, they got this or that, and may work for a little bit. But so part of it is just kind of educating those brands. I talked to some brand where like, yes, you could like gift someone an item and then hope that they make some good content. Or you can establish like a strong relationship with these creators where you set maybe some guidelines, but then they do some things that help you like better as far as like putting out the right information and so forth. There's a higher quality assurance there too, and not be worth paying X amount to get that because it works out for everybody. So just been a lot of that type of educating, throughout the year. Besides just working in the tennis world, I do kind of talk to like other creators outside of the tennis space, and to make sure like, am I saying the correct things? And yeah, that does seem to be there's some patterns that definitely emerges. But one of the patterns that unfortunately emerged for tennis creators is that generally speaking, we tend to get more lowballed than other niches that are out there. But I also tell people that hey, there's only like there's not like infinite number of tennis creators that are out there that can do good work. So you also have a lot that you can offer to these brands. There's only so many people that work. So, like I think kind of building people's confidence, like, hey, you actually do have more to give, or yet you have a lot of worth than you think you do. So, you just make sure like you kind of educate these brands and make sure that they understand like what are they actually getting is actually very valuable for them, and that they should feel like they should feel like it's actually a great deal working with you, even if they paid a little more than they thought they would. They still get back a lot in return. So
Yeah,
not sure how yours experience has been, but I'm sure you've been pretty good. I mean, you seem to be very successful. So you have to navigate those conversations a lot throughout your tennis career too, right?
yeah, it's a tricky one. Like, I mean, because since I'm a bit on the other side, but I also like, I like to give as much value as possible, and then hopefully it means like it's a long-term relationship. I haven't done a lot of like brand deals because I have the website that's kind of rolling on pretty well, right? So it's like, but it's a tricky one because like you get contacted all the time, and you need to kind of obviously protect your own personal brand. I think it's always important. I'm a bit of a too much with that sometimes. Maybe like I say no to everything because I'm just like I don't want to. I just feel like I get sometimes like if I get like A4 with we want this in something, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to. I just want my creative freedom for everything. But that's just how I work. But it's not sometimes sustainable to keep doing that all the time as well. But it's an interesting like back and forth when you're dealing with this kind of emerging space of social media creators. And like you said, all the different medias are moving in different directions and different speeds all the time. So TikTok, I don't understand how TikTok works at all. Instagram seems to be the most like logical in a way, at least for me. I'm like, okay, you can build a community, you can do this. YouTube is its own beast, but so it's like it's quite a tough job to be a content creator in a way. It sounds like the most easy, fun stuff ever. You just do a video, but it's not. It's quite stressful at times.
It is like I can tell people like again going back to remind people of their value is when a brand is working with a content creator, they're essentially hiring like a whole production studio in one person, and then once I can explain it out, like people, like, almost like a light bulb turns on. Like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm doing the copywriting. I'm doing the video shooting, the editing, the customer relationships because I'm replying back to comments on these posts. So all that adds up. It's a lot of people are just not fully understanding that detail of being a content creator. But what's kind of cool is that there was a lot of I would say it's still like the wild west in the content creator space, and there's a lot of potential for high growth and high returns from being invested in this space. I think it's worth it, but at the end of the day, you still have to have fun. Like if you feel like this is like is a kill in your life, like being a content creator, then maybe you need to take a step back and try to understand what are your goals, what can you do, and kind of go from there. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not just all fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun work, but it's just like you have to find the balance of like this is a collaboration I like and I am excited about. Yeah. This one just feels like a chore, and then maybe it's not worth the potential financial benefit of doing it because it's like if it's a chore, you're not gonna do like a good content piece anyway. I think like it's just a feeling of that creativity gets lost a little bit.
Exactly. That's like go back to it now. Nowadays, I would prefer long-term partnerships, the one that I can know I can do multiple things with them, and it's not just a one and done deal. It just makes more sense on both ends. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have time to watch any tennis? Or I mean, I know you have a kid as well, so it's like you're a busy life, right?
Yeah. I have almost 4-year-old daughter now, but no, I try to watch when I can. It's not as I could be better at it. I know you talked with Eliza not too long ago. I know she's really
She's watching.
she's great. I a lot of times I kind she's almost like she's my cheat code. Like what's going on in the tennis world? Let's see what she's posting about, and then she like, okay, I'm caught up. What's going on? I check different the tennis subreddit, for example. So I kind of keep up to date that way. But nowadays it's hard for me to watch like a full match when I have all this other stuff to do. So I usually just catch highlights and call it a day, and that's good. That's good enough. But for some of my more favorite players, like when Nadal was playing, hopefully he comes back soon. But I'll watch his match for the whole time. But yeah.
I think that's yeah.
But
I think that's the thing with tennis is like that you realize the more you talk to tennis people in general. Like it's okay, tennis season is crazy long. There's matches all the time. You can't keep watching. I go to some tournaments every year, maybe like 5, 6, depends on the schedule. And then watching live is more fun, but it also tires you out after you watch like 3 days of tennis. You're like, okay, I'm dead. I'm more of a guy who wants to play tennis than watch tennis. But so watching is fun. Watching live is better. But most people are connected to their favorite players. So like in your case, Nadal, for example, I have maybe a group of players that like I want to watch this guy, this girl, this guy, whatever.
Sure.
But it's very much connected to the person. So I think that's something maybe tennis can work better with because it's like so fan driven around.
Yep.
Not maybe like a not a team sport, but it's like, okay, I'm a Musetti guy, or you're a Rafa guy, and that's where the connection is, and that's where you can build a little bit more maybe engagement around that. I don't know.
Right. You kind of remind me like I'm assuming you watched the Netflix Breakpoint.
Yeah.
Right. So I know it's kind of interesting. I kind of like read like some of the discussion that people have on forums and stuff about it. Where some people, some tennis folks like, it's not. They dislike it for one reason or the other. My opinion is that I thought they did a good job at opening up the potential audience to a sport, and like you said, like it kind of built that personality behind these players, and you felt, me, as a tennis fan after watching Breakpoint, I felt, okay, wow, I got to know these players a lot at a much deeper level. And now when I see them on TV, I want to feel more invested in watching that match. So I think you're right on the fact that we kind of continue to build those tennis player personal brands and get it out there, and really that will really build those connection and make more people really want to go out and watch tennis. But yeah, that's a special thing that makes like tennis a little bit different from other like team sports, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And so your connection to Rafa, like when did it start? Like how long have you been like a big Rafa supporter?
Well, it started because him and I are the same age. So I started tennis in high school. So I looked at, of course I watched tennis at that point. And I was like, why is there a guy who's my age who's playing on the pro tour and beating people, and I'm just here like, at the time I was like, I'm still like thinking like second serve, like, oh my gosh. So I kind of looked up to him, and he's a lefty as well. I'm a lefty, so that between the age, the leftiness, and I also like his personality in general. It's like it was kind of cool. He was just even to this day, but he's always, I always thought he was a very cool player. Back then, he used to wear those what's it called, those like pirate.
Yeah. Pirate
pants. Yeah. I'm like, oh wow, no one else is doing that. And he was wearing the headband and
sleeveless.
Yes, the sleeveless, right? The sleeveless too as well. So he just looked like the non-stereotypical tennis player in my mind. Like people think of tennis players like they have this image, and then I saw Nadal, like, wow, he's not that. But yeah, so that's how I got really close like to him as a player. Yeah, who's your favorite player? Is it Federer? No.
I have Roger in the background there, but yeah. I like Rafa and Roger kind of the most, I guess. But then I have a bunch of different players. I respect Novak a huge deal as well, and he lives here in Malaga, and I'm friends with his brother, so it's there's no option there. But it's like I think it depends a lot on when you got into tennis. So I got back into tennis when Roger was in its heyday, right? So he was like 04, 05, demolishing everyone, plays like a ballet dancer. And then you get Rafa, and then at the beginning he was a bad guy, and you're like, oh, he's ruining Roger with all this topspin, and but then he wins you over because he's that good. And it's also, I think tennis, I try to see tennis more from like, how can we market the sport, sell the sport, like it's a strong passion of mine in tennis, and a big plus in my life, right? So you want to make sure that the sport is packaged the best way if you work with marketing. And players need personalities. And Rafa, for sure, when he came, like with his outfit, was such a personality. Like
Yes.
like you said, he's not the stereotypical tennis player or the typical tennis player, and we need more guys like that, like, or
Mm.
girls. You know, we need people that stand out. You know, and like when you see two Alex Zverev, no offense, Zverev, against each other, sometimes you get a bit like, okay, it's this baseline. This both guys are almost 2 meters tall in you know, the metric system, and or six something. And it's not that exciting. You want the contrast. You want someone that looks completely different on the other side of the net from the guy on the other side of the net. So it's like that thing, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. The first person that when you said that, like on the women's side, that I recently became a much bigger fan is Ange Jabeur. Like after
Great
I'm
point.
more
Yeah.
connected from her on the breakpoint shows, and then like at the U.S. Open like this past year, like okay, I have to watch her matches because like she just makes it's like she's so different from the other players. So yeah, sometimes it can be sometimes she goes a little bit too extra on that, but like she is a very entertaining player to watch. Yeah, we definitely need more. Like, I love variety, and like, that's also my play style. I just like playing with varieties. I don't like just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, the creativity in a player, and like in on the WTA tour, it's been quite rare sometimes with the creativity, because they are like, you know, they usually benefits taller women that hit heavy from the baseline, and that's like we had a period when that was, you know, all that was going on seemingly. But if you go back, maybe you had Steffi Graf, you have Henin Hardan, who were playing a little bit more of a different style. But now the women's tennis is probably the best it's ever been in terms of diversity, and there's a lot of different types of players. Ons is a great one. Sadly, Ash Barty quit, but like also had a different style, you know.
Yeah.
So it's tennis. Women's tennis is in a good spot, I think. Maybe not financially from the WTA,
Right.
but it's like
Right.
from playing and from the
Playing.
players, it looks very good at the moment, right?
I agree. And then I think on the ATP side, it's getting there. I'm starting to see like, oh wow, like, suddenly that finally like some of the newer players are actually making a difference in the
Yeah.
landscape. So no, I think it's still a pretty good time to be a tennis fan. I know like some people were like, oh, after like the once like the big three are gone for the sport, like it's going to go downhill. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of uh, there's a lot to be excited for in the future years. There's a lot of great players out there on both ATP and WTA side.
Yeah,
So
I think in that sense, tennis is doing really well. It's like you saw Sinner now like beat Djokovic twice, singles, doubles, and just amazing performance. Alcaraz, obviously, like always a smile on his face, just like a great mix of Fed and Rafa, kind of. So there's a lot of exciting players, and that's a whole group of players below that like level, the top. So tennis is in that sense in a good space, I think, and the women's is also very diverse. So it's and then it's just like, how do we package it so it reaches the most amount of people in a time where people have less time to watch TV, and TV is not really on in the same way it was, you know, with Netflix and everything.
No, exactly, and that's why I'm also like I'm always open to like new formats in tennis. I know like again some purists do not like that, but I do kind of like seeing the mix up. Was it like the UTS? Was that recently? Yeah, like that. Like I like seeing those kind of mix up. You know, before in the States we had a lot of world team tennis teams where they play a slightly different format. I like that. Like it makes it a little more interesting. And it's shorter as well. It's a little more easier for like the general population to watch. So I welcome seeing more of those innovations in the sport.
Yeah, and I mean, there's room for it. So I mean, obviously the tennis calendar is packed with events. I think sometimes maybe less is more in a way. Like they can find other ways of dealing with the tour, because it's like maybe you can have round robins a bit more, so you can actually go to a tournament and you know your favorite player is going to have at least 3 matches, for example. So you have that kind of element of it, or find a way to more evenly distribute the money that way, because the structure now is like tournaments every week, people travel like crazy, and it doesn't feel like super sustainable the way it's formatted at the moment. Just my feeling, right?
I agree. I was gonna say when we're talking about like how is ATP, how's WTA, like at the top levels they look good, but at the lower level, like 100 see like 100 and below rankings, there's definitely a lot of it's not sustainable the way it is, for sure. Like I think we're losing a lot of potentially like great players because of the grind of the sport. So I'm glad to see like the things like the PTPA. Yeah, PTPA are doing as far as like really getting the message out there, and there needs to be a little more balance in how compensation is done amongst the lower levels players. So I think Yeah, and I feel like I heard a lot more of that this past year. I'm not sure if that's just me. Have you feel like you've been hearing a lot more of that this past year?
Yeah, I think there's stuff happening. I mean, now I heard like rumors with the Saudis
Hmm.
coming in and like mixing up the tours and stuff like that. I don't know what's gonna happen there. That feels a little bit like it's gonna might be a big change. Might be good, might be bad. Who knows? Right?
Right.
It's hard to know, really. But there's gonna be a lot of changes. I feel like in the coming year or so. I think you have to be like the world is in a kind of fast moving situation right now, whatever it is. So it's like you have to be pretty ready to adapt to whatever
No,
is
for sure,
thrown at you.
for sure.
Yeah. So it's cool. Yeah, I understand you don't have. I'm the same. Like I don't watch that much. I watch a little bit, and I try to keep up with the highlights and everything. Sometimes if it's I see that okay on the live score app or whatever, there's like gonna be a hot match. Then I'm
Hmm.
gonna watch it. But it's not. It's quite time consuming to follow a tennis
Yes.
tour. Like
Yes,
it's
it
a full
is.
time job.
And like I said, like I have a kid, I have a full time job. I'm doing a lot. It's just it's tough. So, um, yeah. As I said, like I can't. I mean, I give kudos to people that can watch like matches throughout the whole year, the full matches. Like that's not my lifestyle. Unfortunately, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to, I mean, you have a lot of rackets on the wall. You're a Wilson guy. What do you play with? You play with the Clash or something?
Yeah, so I mean, I used to use like Pro Staff for a while, 9.5 Scrunch, and then when I got the partnership with Wilson, they class was kind of just coming out, and I tried it, like, oh, this actually feels pretty good, and like initially I was worried about the 100 square inch frame, but like it wasn't like that big of a change once I started playing with it. And so ever since then, I just really like that feel of the Clash racket. I know again it kind of depends on the player. Like some people don't like that feel, but for me personally, I do like that pocketing feel of the racket. And
No.
I try to switch, like I try out different rackets. Like I mean, I try the shift racket or the ultra blade. And I mean, they're okay, but like I still go back to the Clash. I think if I had to change back, it would be the Pro Staff. That's when I felt the most comfortable outside of the Clash. But yeah, I've used them throughout my whole tennis life, and I'm still like open to try out different rackets, but so far Wilson has been pretty good for me personally. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets tough to change once you've kind of connected to a feel or a performance, or you know where the ball is going. Like from that, and also the Clash has a very
Yes.
specific feel, right? So it's hard to, if you like it, it's hard to find it anywhere else. You don't find that kind of feel in any other modern rackets,
Right.
really, right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, at one point I did try to use a Babolat racket because again, like I like Nadal and he was using a Babolat racket, and I tried for and like oh god, I just don't like it. It felt so different, so off for me. So like okay, after that I went back to Wilson. So I think that was the one other time that I had considered trying a racket and then immediately switched back to Wilson.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that happening. It's a lot for it's the same for a lot of people. Whether your level, it's like you try something and I want to go back to what you already know. It's with everything, right? You have this kind of muscle memory built
Yes.
up for years, and you're suddenly going to change that.
Exactly. Oh, what brackets do you use?
Since I test all the time, I use everything, but I have like an old head pro stock, like that the Karatsev and Mario use called the PT7A. It's my standard racket nowadays, but since I test everything on the market, it gets a little bit tricky to stay loyal. You're always testing something new strings, new rackets all the time. I have like 100 rackets in the world over there, so it's like because you're testing around too much. But I'm always curious, and you're stringing yourself, right? As well.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So I started in college with like a clipper mate at the time, the drop weight clipper mate, and I mean they're good for what it was.
yeah.
I mean it was. I mean I was a I didn't have a lot of money back then, so that worked out very well. And then I worked at a club for like a couple of years after college, and that's where I got more serious into it. That's why I became like the main stringer for the club. Eventually, I bought a Prince Neos, which I still have behind me. I am looking to upgrade it eventually, like soonish. Like I've been kind of eyeing like the Wilson Bayardo. I've been but it's an investment, and I had to kind of convince my wife, like, hey, can I go ahead and treat myself to this? But yeah, I mean, I've been stringing for I guess like 15, 16 years now. still learning new things with it. Most time, I guess one thing I call myself out for this one. Like I recently did a stringing video on TikTok, right? And I was showing people were very curious about how stringing worked. By the way, if you ever go on TikTok, there's so many. It's very interesting. It's a different dynamic. Where on Instagram, there's most of my people that follow me, they know tennis or they play tennis. But on TikTok, most are more like very much like beginner or like had no knowledge of. Like there's one video that blew up because I cut out the strings in my racket, and people were confused. They were like how do you play tennis with that racket now? It's broken. So I thought like you're supposed to just restring it, and people were it blew their mind. Like you're supposed to restring rackets. So I did a stringing video, and like so I just showed like okay, I feel pretty confident in my stringing abilities, but I don't. One thing I didn't do was I forgot to pre-stretch the string that I was using, and you can tell that in the video. Like okay, it was definitely a little more springer than it should be. I wasn't used to stringing like it was a multi-filament string, but I wasn't used to stringing on the mains for this one racket. I should. I normally string like the poly string, so I completely forgot to pre-string it. But otherwise, I'm still I love stringing. I still constantly try to learn. I try to get more new stuff. I stay educated. I mean, I recently joined the GRSA. Yep, I recently joined it, so I need to go through their videos to see, make sure that I'm doing everything correctly as well. Because I mean, I learned from my former high school coach who taught me. I felt like he did a good job at teaching me, but as I throughout the years, I know like there's definitely like different people do slightly different things, and sometimes I'm not sure like am I doing it the correct way? Is there a more correct way to do it? I mean, you string rackets like.
Yeah, I have a machine here actually where I'm sitting, and it's a good one. I'm happy with it. That's a head, some electronic head machine. Actually, I have to string like with the testing. Although I have friends that Nikki like strings for Novak and stuff like that. I still prefer like having it at home so I can just tomorrow I have to go out. I have to rackets to test. It's just, and also when you're testing strings, you want to test maybe different combinations of the string. You might want to test different tensions. So in the end, you really need it. It's fast for me to just go and boom, 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 I'm done. But it's pretty. It's boring. I find it very boring, but it's also relaxing in a way, right?
Yeah,
so it's like
I was gonna ask you about that. Like, what's your routine when you string rackets? I think it's different from like a tournament stringer where like they have to crank out a bunch of rackets. For me, I mean, I string like here and there. It's not as urgent. So what I usually do is like I'm stringing, like I'm stringing back, and then I'm watching a show at the same time. So I'm not like for me, it's like it's kind of calming, relaxing. I'm still very focused on stringing, but like I have this in the background. Like, okay, I can do both at the same time without much issues. Like, I'm not, what do you do normally when you're stringing rackets?
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I put on like either a podcast or I watch something. Maybe there's a tennis match going on. There's some tennis TV on, or because then sometimes it's good to just let your brain be free and just be around. It's like one of the things they talk about in a lot of modern books now. It's like how it's good to mind wander a bit, because in today's society we don't let our minds wander. We're always running from one thing, or then it's a screen, with the hand, always mobile, right? But yeah, I tend to watch something because I do one racket, I'm enjoying it. 2 rackets, I'm starting to get bored. 3 rackets, I'm okay. This is annoying now.
Right, exactly. I kind of like that. Yeah, let the mind wander. I mean, I do that as well, because it also helps with my creative process. Sometimes like things just. I mean, a lot of times that happens at nighttime when right before I fall asleep. And like, that's an idea, and I gotta quickly write it down in my notes. And okay, excellent. But no.
Well, sure. I think the mind wandering for creativity, that's like the main purpose of it, because I think if you're constantly distracted by a screen or something, or a person, whatever it is, you're not allowing yourself to just be in the moment and letting your mind go somewhere, and like that's why people have ideas when they're in the shower, because suddenly their brain is the only thing that's really mainly active. Like it's just in a kind of a dormant stage, so it runs wild, which is how it should be, right? You should allow your brain to be, usually in the shower you come, I could do it like this, or
do that actually, because lately I've been kind of in the shower. I have a phone holder. It's on the far side of the shower, so I'm just like I'm actually watching TikToks as I'm taking a shower. But I should probably just like sometimes just like nothing, just take a shower and then just let my mind wander.
Yeah, I think it's good. How bad is your social media addiction? Like everybody has it, but it's like how bad is it?
How bad is it? I think that depends on who you talk to. I'm sure like my wife, for example, who's like not into social media at all. Like she probably, initially she had um, some concerns with how often I'm on my phone, but then especially this past year, once I showed, hey, I have this partnership, and I'm generating this much of revenue. Like she's like, okay, you can keep on doing that. That's a good hobby. But like, I mean, I'm not on it as much recently, as much as I used to be. I used to be more like I have to like I used to be the person that I go from like my main feed, I'll scroll through, and I try to hit up like literally everyone that I see on there until it gets to the very end. But nowadays it's so much harder to do that, especially like on Instagram. And now they put in like a lot of different suggested posts, which I think there's the pros and cons of that, but there's more. It's more endless nowadays. There's not a clear stop. So I don't do that as much because it just takes too much time. I do have like I said like a favorites list where there's some like creators that I want to at least make sure I get to them at the very least. But yeah, and I try my best to for everyone else, but it's tough over time. Like it's hard to always catch up with everybody when you have like it just gets harder as you go on, as you get more followers. It's hard to keep track of everyone. But I do try my best. I have one rule. I have a couple of rules actually for my social media. Is that if anyone like, comments on my page and it's like a real comment on I'll definitely like reply back to. I want to make sure that I acknowledge that I did see their comment, and I try my best to even go to their page and do some type of engagement, check them out. Again, I always go back to thinking. Social media is the first part. It's social. It's it's not a one-way street. That's like I know it's like some creators. It literally is they just say stuff and then they don't ever respond to their fans. And I know on my end, when I follow creators like that, unless I'm really, really interested in them, after a while, I'll become disconnected. Like, okay, I want to unfollow them because I don't really feel close to them at all. But as soon as that person like responds back to one comment, like, oh my god, I thought they could respond back. Okay, so yeah, I kind of keep that in mind. Like as whatever happens as I continue to grow, that I want to make sure I keep that level headed. Like okay, I want to make sure I still respond to people and so forth. So I'm not. How do you handle like social media?
Yeah, kind of like that. I mean, for me, it's been becoming a little bit tough to manage all the racket questions.
Yeah.
So if you're in the racket gear space, a lot. Like I'm not full 100% in that, but mainly, and it's been like that over the years. I get so many questions about like, is the speed more powerful than a pure strike? Is the blade more powerful than or whatever? Can I get more spin from this string if I lower the tension to 50 pounds? Stuff like that. And I have maybe I have hundreds every week, right? So it's impossible to keep up with this on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and so on. So I just have to kind of leave some people hanging. But I try to, when I'm there, I try to engage with the people that are leaving good comments, questions, respectful stuff. But to give like detailed advice, what I really suffered from sometimes is that you answer one question and you open up Pandora's box of like a billion other questions that just, I have you on the line now let's go.
Do you ever like take those like questions, like especially like the more common ones, and make that into like a video content idea that you just make a video?
I've done, but I should do more. I should do like a bit more. Like that's a better way of doing it, and I think people would maybe appreciate that you do that as well, right? Like that you actually like value their question and you make sure that everybody can get the answer because it's not just one person. So it's actually the best way of making.
I know one thing that at the beginning of the conversation you mentioned you didn't quite understand TikTok work well. That could be one way you could handle it. Is that that's how you make TikTok videos, just literally just you talking of that, like where you're responding to these questions. And on TikTok, it's more I guess it's more allowed for people to do that. Like I'm not on Instagram, it's still require a little bit more polish, but on Instagram you can just on TikTok you can just go in just shoot a video, you're just talking, maybe have some captions on, but that's like a lot of accounts can just blow up from that because you're a
it's like because TikTok sometimes feels like if you're not, this is just my old hat feeling, but it's like if you're not following a trend or using a popular sound, it's tough to get any traction.
So that used to go back to what I said earlier, like how that used to be how it was on TikTok, and then it has evolved over time. It used to be on TikTok, it's like a short video, quick trend, dance, or follow something. Now they're even on TikTok. When I open it up, it says, "Hey, you should make a minute long or a minute video or longer videos now." those tend to have higher growth, and it's true. As I've been watching more videos, like now you see a trend of much longer videos where people are like that are novel in whatever topic they're talking about. They just have like monologues about things, and it's actually kind of engaging. I find myself discovering new. Like I think it could definitely work for you because you're definitely very knowledgeable in this space. But like I find myself randomly scrolling through and like I'm suddenly like why am I watching like 5 or 6 videos on how to put like a caulk on a house or something, or like how to like random topics that I never thought I would be interested in. I think that's how my page, like some people find me, is like they just randomly find me from something else, like a search term on TikTok, and it got to my page, and then they ask me questions, and okay, I respond back, and then it just kind of built from there. Again, it also gives me good ideas for future content generation. Like I can make something like that on TikTok where it's more kind of raw, and then I could maybe take snippets or polish it a little bit and put it on Instagram. So there's some, it works out both ways. So yeah, I think you would be
Cool. Great
you would
tip. Yeah.
do well.
I mean, like, are you very active on TikTok, like more than Insta, or are you
So
just kind of both?
I would say so. I'm definitely more active on Instagram, especially for content creation. TikTok, I'm more active as far as like randomly scrolling around and like finding stuff. For a while, I used to like grab like different ideas or concepts from TikTok originally, and then I bring them onto Instagram. So, like for example, like 2-3 years back, like the concept of even just like lip syncing to a song or whatever, where it was you make kind of relatable. It wasn't quite there on Instagram just yet, so I started doing some of that to grab some ideas from TikTok and bring it on to Instagram. And then nowadays you see a lot more of it. But yeah, that's something that I kind of borrowed originally from TikTok. So I still use TikTok just to kind of for fun and scroll through things. I don't do much tennis watching, like tennis content watching on TikTok. Funny enough, so all my tennis stuff is on Instagram. But it goes back to what I said. Like most time on TikTok, I just find there's much more knowledgeable tennis people on there. It's a different audience that you're speaking to. So yeah, that's what I think it'd be kind of interesting if you kind of start doing some TikTok where you start explaining like basic stuff like, hey, did you know that lowering or increasing your tension of your racket changes things? You might blow some people's mind, like, when you can do that. Like I find that that's kind of making the visit. Oh yeah, you didn't know that? You can clip, you can clip this way, or you can put different strings, or rackets actually matter. Like that was a big question. Like people, are like, oh, like a racket, all rackets are the same. Like, and like, and they're serious. They're serious. Like think that that's true. But you won't find it on Instagram, but like on TikTok, yeah. So I treat it as like an opportunity to educate, and I think people really legitimately learn from that experience. Like, okay, yeah, I learned something new today. So, so that's So every once in a while, I still make content on TikTok. I should be more consistent on there, but I kind of I should be more consistent on there. But I have thought about doing more on there. Probably like next year, once I kind of build up some structure in my day. I'm still kind of figuring. Guys, I recently changed jobs back in January, so I'm still kind of figuring out what's the flow of it. So I think next year I'll have a better idea of the sense of what I can do. Yeah.
What do you work with now? Are you like in data, or what do you work?
So I'm starting like a nonprofit world. So I work. So the place I work at is a metastatic breast cancer research and advocacy group, but they do most of like fundraising through the sport of volleyball. Funny enough, so I've actually been working with. I know, right?
Cool.
So actually, I changed sports kind of, but so I mostly work with like a lot of volleyball, like high school girls teams or colleges on raising funds for metastatic breast cancer research, and that's what we do. So it's been great. I can say like, yeah, I'm helping with trying to cure cancer in my work. So I have a lot of a lot of interest personally, but I can still do my tennis stuff on the side, which I appreciate well. So.
Were you always like driven around like making a difference in? I mean, you were like one of the themes around you seems to be very grassroots. Like you want to, now you're working with breast cancer, is kind of a heavy topic, but it's like you're actually feeling. I'm sure that you're doing something very good. It's not like you're working for a finance company and trying to help them get 1% more, baseline every year. So was that always a strong drive in you that you wanted to do something that is actually beneficial on a kind of bigger picture?
I would say I've always been more motivated by those things versus like monetary things. I would say I'm still motivated by money, but here, of course, like I want is, but I'm still motivated. Like at the end of the day, like I want to make sure that I am really helping the world with what I can do, and whether it's like just like organizing things or just like spreading the word on something. That's always been my more like primary motivator, and is going back to the social media side. I've always been involved in social media in some capacity. So like I was, for example, involved on a blogging site for a while. It was not tennis related, but I always kind of like that idea of just that community building. It's like connecting people from all around the country, the world, on topics that's relatable for those folks. And I just love seeing that just the possibilities that can come out of that. Like for example, like back in the day when I was on the blogging platform, I did some in-person meetups at a time where at the time that was really more unheard of. Like you didn't really do that. Like people just stayed on social media; they were just there. But now, like I probably brought like this other layer of connection. Is like okay, we can set up some meetups with these people. And nowadays it's a little more common. But yeah, that was something that I really just enjoyed. Is just seeing people connect and forming friendships, relationships for for the whole lifetime possibly. That's always been my primary motivation.
That's cool. That's great. I think it's an interesting time we're in because like social media and I would say Meta, with their quest and their focus on like bringing VR and being able to kind of connect people, but virtually. I mean, and there's always been like now, at least recently, been a word that we're like disconnecting people by actually people not seeing each other. Like there's a big like loneliness epidemic they talk about a lot. But there's always ways to use social media and technology in a way that you meet people. Like I used to work in like the dating industry, right? Like some years back, and you can use technology in having people actually meet up, get married, or just like meet friends or find tennis partners or whatever. So you can use the technology for social outcomes, right? So I that's interesting that you mentioned that it's like you can actually use that blogging platform, or whatever, to get people to meet up.
Right. That's I've always been kind of like that with social media, or just like even like video calls like this. Like I actually was working remotely throughout all my tennis career. Like even before the pandemic, I did it all the time. So and like I said, I worked in the community space. I had to form relationships. I think there are ways that you can still gain some connections through these different platforms, virtually, what have you. You just kind of understand the pros and cons of everything, and it just all kind of works out if you continue to keep that in mind. Like, yeah, you're still building relationships, even if it's like virtually or whatever. But then you can set up these in-person meetings, and then like all the people that I meet up with in person that I met originally from Instagram, for example, I just feel like when I meet with them, there's no difference. Like okay, it's like. I don't feel any different from my end. Maybe they do, but like I feel like okay, I'm just talking to them again. Like Eliza, for example. Like I use her example. Like I met her for the first time at the U.S. Open, but I felt like I've known her for a while because we've been connected online. So I always, maybe for me personally, that's how I always felt with social media. It's just another way of connecting, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, there's a lot of positives that can come from social media. People always talk about the addiction or things that can go bad, but I've always seen a lot of the positives with these things.
Yeah, glass half full. I think I'm similar in that sense. Like for example, yesterday I had Luca here from. I live in south of Spain, Marbella, and which is a good tennis place, like sunny year round pretty much, and lots of courts, and that's why a lot of pros come here. So we have Novak living here, we have Chapo always training here, as a house here and stuff like that. Chapo so a lot of players here, but Luca is the kind of community creator for Rackets and Runners. It's like a Canadian company. So he was like, "Oh, I've been following Tennis Nerd for several years. I'm a big fan. You want to play? I'm going to drive down from Seville, which is like 2.5 hours, which in American terms is not that far, but in European terms is quite far." So he drove down and we played for like 2 hours, and we had some beers afterwards. It's super nice. So then it's like he's only seen me on YouTube. I've seen him only on YouTube, but then you meet up and you feel familiar. It's not like this is a stranger now. It's like a completely different entity here. It's like you know pretty much the personality, but then you get to know them a bit better, right? So I think you're right on the money there. That it's like once you've had a chat online or via Skype or Zoom or whatever, that's some kind of connection anyway. Right?
That's absolutely correct.
So what, do you have any ideas? That's an interesting thing I've been thinking about. Like, one of the frustrations I feel like people have generally, like in tennis, is that you need another partner to play with, or maybe three, depending if you play doubles. You need three more people. Is there? How do people find each other in the US, for example, or in your region? Like, how do you find people to practice with?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's several ways. If someone asks me this question, I would say, okay, well, I mean, one is if you just go to tennis court. Sometimes like you just go to tennis court and you see someone else hitting, like say, hey, just join them at one point, and then you can get their contacts and you can play. We do have like a meetup. I mean, the app meetup app. That there's some tennis groups that are formed there. There's some local grassroots groups that have programs in the area. So like in my county, there's like a local tennis association that they do have. They run the leagues in the area, so that's another way to get to know people. Obviously through USTA, you join the leagues or tournament. That could be a way to form some connection or get you build your network of tennis players in the area that are your level. And then online forums, sometimes there's some options. I know there's also some apps that can be helpful. They're out there. There's multiple ones out there, but you can like find local players in your area. I'll say it's not like always a one thing that you should do. You should always just do multiple things to form those connections. Yeah, but I think like for me personally, like lately, like just moving to a relatively new area, I just go to tennis court sometimes. Okay, because people playing around the same time that I'm out there, and I say, hey, let's connect sometime. Let's play. So I just a lot of times just going out to tennis court. It's like I practice serve for a little bit. No, someone else playing. I practice serve. Like, let's hit. So yeah, that's how I do it personally.
Yeah, I think tennis is one of those great connector sports. I guess there are other sports as well that do that, but team sports you need so many. But tennis, you can actually, yeah, like you said, practice serves. You can go with a ball machine. There's some guy or girl like milling around, and then you'll be like, okay, let's play. Or if you join a league, you might find people in the league that you play with. That, oh, we're about the same level. Let's play more on a regular basis, or maybe you want to hit some other time. So and tennis people, in my experience, generally quite easygoing. So it's not like, I mean, some people are too competitive.
Sure.
I've ranted about that before, but
I go back to the question, like how I mostly stayed in the community space. I definitely have heard stories in the higher performance level, like the competitive tennis side, where that's a whole other like conversation. But yeah, it can definitely get very serious. I find that in the community space, a lot of people are just happy to be on court and they just want to play. So that's how I've been, as well. So I'm just happy to be on the court to play.
Same. Like I've struggled with that because I played these ITF seniors events. Like sometimes you have ex futures players and like high level players, like, and they're all super competitive. Like they start or your line call after one game and stuff like that. And I'm there to have fun and just like try to, like, I'm seeing tennis as a kind of a way to have fun and get exercise and have a social experience as well. So you're meeting someone, you're hitting balls, you're applauding each other's shots. That was a great shot, But some people, they go just like, I'm gonna stroke my ego, so I'm today, and that's sometimes. I think that can also be a detractor for new people. Like my mother is getting into tennis, and I'm coaching her, and my father's already playing. But and I can see that if she's joining a group of like mixed doubles or whatever, and there's people who are very judgmental of a new player or beginner or an intermediate player, then it's tough. Like, so you need to kind of let that guard down a little bit and let people have fun and not be so.
Yep, that's me. If you're in my area, like you're trying, I want to hit, like that's I'm very much like that. Just I can play with people from all different levels. I'll find some way to enjoy it. So I'm not like, oh, it feels like someone's like a beginner. I'll find a way to make it a fun experience for both of us in some way. So yeah, like I said, I'm just happy that I can be on court because, like I said, I have a kid, I have some work. Like if I can find time to actually be on court and actually play, I'm already happy. I already reached my goal of being on the court. So that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I think that is a true essence of an ambassador for the sport as well. Like to have that, I want to spread joy around this sport and around people enjoying it and stuff like that. So I think that's great. And I know you've been pressed 4 times, so it's a great way to end the conversation if you want to do that. And I really urge everyone to follow your channels. They're great. Like you do some really funny videos with some good insights, and that's easy to relate to. I think it's relatable tennis content. Is something that's not always out there because there's a lot of expert, there's a lot of coaching advice, but kind of relatability, I think we need.
Sure, exactly. That's how I kind of try to differentiate myself a little bit on Instagram, is where I'm actually coming in like, okay, what I mean, there are a lot of like at the time I saw like there's a lot of like high level coaches that were provide some tips, and then there's like some high-level play, like junior players. Oftentimes I see they're making content, but there's another niche that within the tennis niche that could use more content. So I start with more relatable content, and I try to make a mixture of things. So I do some relatable content, I do some educational content as well. Not necessarily always about like specific like stroke skills, but more like other stuff like how to wrap a tennis racket. I mean, these are things that are important for tennis people to know, that I have some knowledge on. So I try to share that, and and I should start continue doing that. And I'm still always experimenting with different things that to post up. So like I want to make sure it doesn't get stale. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I still like to form whatever content that can connect to people. That's at the end of the day, that's a good content for me. So yeah, but
Yeah, it seems to be kind of close to your person. I always notice like when you're doing a certain type of content as a creator, I think it no matter how much you try, you're going to show off your personality and what your preferences are. So I mean, if you're a guy who likes engaging and educating in a positive, easygoing way, that's gonna, even if you do other types of content, it's always gonna shine through that, right? Like that's who you are as a creator, as a person, right? So,
Yep, absolutely. And I'm still having a good time doing it. I'm still enjoying all the different connections I'm making. So as far as I know, I'm still going to continue doing this for a while. So yeah, hope you all.
That's great.
I guess should I do a plug for myself? I guess like you want to follow me, you can. I'm mostly on Instagram right now. It's Alex Chan Tennis. I'm also on TikTok as Alex Chan Tennis as well. But yeah, feel free to follow me. I'm going to continue to do some more stuff next year. I have some things planned that I don't want to release just yet, but I am trying to do a bit more stuff. I'm going to try to create, like, I guess one sneak peek is I'm going to try to create some content that people can like download, like some guides for people that can use for not just for tennis, but also as a content creator, like how to be a better content creator in general. So I'm kind of leaning a little more into that space to like help others. I answer like a lot of conversations I have in DMs are for better creators. Like people asking me how should I do this, or how should I approach this brand or whatever. So I figure I might add that to part of my content delivery is like also. Like it's very meta. Like it's like teaching content creation for tennis people. It's so niche, but I think there's a value for that to be out there as well. Yeah, hope you all enjoy this conversation that I had today, and yeah, it was great chatting today too. A lot of great conversation topics. So.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you have a nice day now, and say hi to the DC area. I hope to be back
here. Let me know. I'll sure.
Yeah, with some balls for sure. I mean, it's always fun. I was planning to go to City Open, but it didn't work out. It's like in a weird spot in the calendar. It's also insane hot around that time. So, but the US Open would be nice to go next year for sure.
I'm at the US Open every year. Maybe, so, yeah, well, who knows? Maybe we'll see each other there.
I hope so. No, I need to go to the States in a bit. I haven't been in a few years. So
great.
It's important. All right. Have a nice day, man.
Talk later. Bye.